evening. Here's Top News English newsletter starting with headlines. Syrian army targets terrorists in many areas across the country. Lebanese captives moved from Arsal, Qahwaji said. Hamas stated that no agreement yet to extend Gaza ceasefire. And ISIS crimes spark mass Iraqi Christians exodus in Qarqoush. Welcome to details. Syrian army targeted Thursday terrorist gatherings in many areas across the country, eliminating huge numbers of them. A military source said that army units targeted terrorists in Damascus countryside, killing and injuring a number of them. In Quneitra countryside, army troops targeted terrorists' gatherings in Ofamia village. A car used by terrorists in the criminal acts was also destroyed. Army soldiers killed and injured a number of terrorists and destroyed their weaponry in Homs countryside. A military source said that another army unit destroyed a car with all the terrorists inside it at a farm of the northeast of Palmyra. Army units killed and injured a number of terrorists in Dar'a countryside. Units of the army forces attacked dens and gatherings of terrorists in a number of neighborhoods in Aleppo city and its countryside, where a number of terrorists were killed and some of their cars were destroyed. In Lebanon, Lebanese captives have been taken out of the northeastern town of Arsal by militants, Army Commander General Jan Qahwaji said on Thursday. The captured soldiers were removed from Arsal from the onset of the battles, Qahwaji told reporters at the Grand Sirel. A total of 38 members of security forces, 22 Lebanese soldiers and 19 policemen were taken captives by militants who overran Arsal Saturday following the arrest of a Syrian militant commander by the Lebanese army. The militants withdrew from Arsal Thursday morning after a ceasefire agreement paved their way to retreat from the northeast border town. Moreover, in Lebanon, Lebanese Speaker Nabih Berri called a parliament session for August 12 in yet another attempt to elect a president for the republic. 10 sessions have been held since April to elect a successor for President Michel Suleiman, whose term expired on May 25. The election is deadlocked by sharp divisions between the March 8 and rival March 14 coalitions, which have so far failed to agree on a compromised candidate. In Palestine, Israel and Hamas appeared at odds Thursday over prolonging a 72-hour Gaza ceasefire, with Hamas resistance group insisting on fulfillment of all pending stipulations. Guns have stayed silent in the tiny Palestinian enclave since Tuesday, bringing relief to 1 million of people on both sides after the death of 1,886 Palestinians and 67 on the Israeli side. Egyptian mediators have accelerated efforts to extend the truce after it expires at 5 GMT on Friday, shuttling between the Israeli and Palestinian delegations in Cairo. A spokeswoman for the Israeli army said that 27,000 reservists called up for the conflict had been sent home, leaving a force of 55,000 still on active duty, in another sign of growing hopes for long-term quiet. But Hamas deputy leader Musa Abu Marzouk, part of the Palestinian delegation holding talks in Cairo, denied overnight there was yet any agreement. Israeli Foreign Minister Avigdor Lieberman has called for European Union inspectors to monitor Gaza's borders amid efforts to extend a ceasefire in a German newspaper interview published on Thursday. The European Union implemented its so-called EU BAM operation in 2005 at the Rafah crossing point between Gaza and Egypt. In cooperation with Israeli and Palestinian officials, the mission of 70 European police officers monitored movement of people, goods and vehicles at the crossing, Gaza's only window to the outside world that bypasses Israel. But it was suspended in June 2007 after Hamas seized power in the Gaza Strip. France last month proposed reviving the operation and Germany has backed the call. Lieberman also said that Israel didn't want to again administer Gaza after it withdrew its troops and settlers from the coastal enclave in September 2005. But he said that a solution needed to be found for the residents of Gaza and urged Germany to take a leading role. In Iraq, the ISIS militant group took over Iraq's largest Christian town of Qarqush and surrounding areas on Thursday and sent tens of thousands of panicked residents fleeing toward autonomous Kurdistan, officials and witnesses said. ISIS militants moved overnight after the withdrawal of Kurdish Peshmerga troops who are stretched thin across several fronts in Iraq, residents said. Qarqush is an entirely Christian town which lies between Mosul and Erbil, the Kurdish region's capital. It usually has a population of around 50,000 people. Talkiv, the home of the significant Christian community as well as members of the Shabak Shiite minority, also emptied overnight. Moreover, in Iraq, Kurds from Iraq, Syria and Turkey joined forces in North Iraq Wednesday to try to reclaim areas lost to ISIS militants and rescue thousands of civilians stranded in mountains without food or water. The fate of the civilians, many of them from the Yazidi minority who fled to the Sinjar mountains after the attack by ISIS terrorist group at the weekend, has sparked international concern. In raids west and north of their main Iraqi hub of Mosul in recent days, ISIS Takfiri militants took over the town of Sinjar and Zumar, further rescued the border with Syria by seizing Rabia and bagged several oil fields in the process. As part of the fight back, an Iraqi government airstrike smashed a hole in Mosul building the terrorists had been using as a self-claimed court, military spokesman Qasim Atta said. In Egypt, an Egyptian court sentenced 2 men to life imprisonment and a third to 20 years in jail on Thursday for sexually assaulting and beating women during celebrations held after President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi's election. The men were also asked to pay $14,000 each in compensation to their victims who were forcibly separated from their friends and family, stripped of their clothes, beaten and sexually assaulted by gangs of men during a rally on June 6. In Yemen, Yemeni forces shot dead 7 suspected Al-Qaeda militants Thursday in a clash in the southeastern province of Hadramaut, a day after confrontations left 18 militants and 10 soldiers dead, an official said. The clash erupted when Al-Qaeda gunmen attacked the military headquarters in the city of Sayun, a stronghold of jihadists, the military official said. The army had reinforced its positions in Sayun ahead of an anticipated operation against militants in the city. 5 other soldiers died on Wednesday in an ambush in the southern province of Shabwa, while 3 members of the Interior Ministry Special Forces were killed in an ambush in Rida in the central province of Badia. 4 soldiers died Monday in an ambushes in Hadramaut, while 4 policemen were killed Saturday in an attack on a checkpoint in Shabwa. Security services blamed the attack on Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, which has been branded by Washington as the extremist network's deadliest franchise. In Turkey, the government of Prime Minister Recep Tayyip Erdogan has acknowledged significant recruitment of Turkish nationals by Islamic State of Iraq and Syria militant group in Iraq and Syria. Officials have told Turkish parliament that at least 1,000 Turks were fighting with ISIS terrorists in Iraq and Syria. They said that Turks offered lucrative salaries, were recruited in mosques, schools, and even from the security forces. The figure was released in wake of allegations by the parliamentary opposition that Turkey was being used for ISIS terrorist group recruitment and training. The opposition cited videos that showed purported ISIS militants at a celebration outside Istanbul in late July. Turkey has long been accused of tolerating ISIS as part of efforts to maintain the war in neighboring Syria. Opposition sources say that Turkish intelligence facilitated the supply of terrorists and weapons from Turkey to Syria. Iran and 6 world powers will hold a new round of nuclear talks before the UN General Assembly, which starts on September 16, a spokesman for lead negotiator Catherine Ashton said on Thursday. We expect to hold a 3rd round of talks in advance of the ministerial meeting at UN General Assembly at a location to be determined. We will also likely hold a meeting on the sidelines of UN General Assembly, as we did last year, possibly with ministers participating in some way, spokesman Michael Mann said. U.S. missile cruiser Vela Gulf has entered the Black Sea in what the American Navy described as a move to promote peace and stability in the region. Moscow has considered any such acts as offensive. It's not the first time this year that Vela Gulf is sent on a mission in the Black Sea. It was moored in the port of Constanta, Romania from late May till mid-June. In July, the U.S. missile cruiser spent a week in the Black Sea joining 6 other vessels for NATO's naval drills. NATO has increased its presence in the region in the wake of the Ukrainian crisis. Moscow has never approved of what it sees as the military alliance's muscle flexing in its backyard. And finally, in Russia, Russia will ban fruit, vegetables, meat, fish, milk, and dairy imports from the United States, the European Union, Australia, Canada, and Norway. Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev told a government meeting on Thursday. The decision follows a decree signed by President Vladimir Putin ordering the government to ban or limit food imports from the countries that imposed sanctions on Moscow for its support of rebels in eastern Ukraine and the annexation of Crimea. There is nothing good in sanctions, and it wasn't an easy decision to take, but we had to do it, Medvedev said. That's all for today. Thanks for joining us. I'm Dima Yunus. Good night.